A high court in South Africa has decided that cameras will be allowed in court when Olympic star Oscar Pistorius' murder trial starts next week. This infamous case is sure to attract worldwide attention. But every day in South Africa, the terrible crime of rape and, shockingly, child rape goes virtually unnoticed anymore. But my next guest has devoted the last 10 years of her life making sure to document the terrible evidence for all time. In her new book, My Piece of Sky, photographer Mariella Furrer uses powerful photographs, interviews, artwork and poetry to give voice to the victims and hold out the possibility of accountability for the perpetrators. Mariella Furrer, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. You know, I was just looking at this massive book, and I'm thinking many of us have documented the unspeakable crimes that are done to children or women around the world. But what you've done is exhaustive. It's 10 years of your life, at least. But also you have a personal stake in this. You yourself were sexually assaulted.
Well, I was 5 years old. It was in Kenya, and I was molested by a stranger, a tourist. I think it was some white man in a little caravan, and he touched me. But it felt good. It felt good, and that filled me with guilt and remorse. And it impacted me in so many ways that I wasn't really aware of at the time growing up.
In the preface to this book, you quote Maya Angelou, the great American poet and author. She says, "There is no greater tragedy than bearing an untold story inside of you." And you've decided to try to shake off that tragedy by bearing witness to the crimes committed to others.
Absolutely. I think the most important thing about this body of work really is to try to get people to speak out about their abuse, to have the courage to speak out about it, because there's a lot of shame and guilt attached to it, because in speaking out they will rid themselves of that burden of guilt and shame, but also put an end to the perpetrators that have abused them but will continue to abuse, because as long as we don't speak out, the perpetrator will continue.
Let's just talk about some of the terrifying statistics. 45% of rapes reported to the police are child rapes, and 50% of children will be abused before the age of 18. This is according to South African authorities. It is mind-boggling. It's staggering. What have you found in your investigation? It's not just confined to a ghetto somewhere.
No, I mean, child sexual abuse, first of all, is a global problem. It is... It transcends any social, economic and racial boundaries, and it's everywhere. I think even with the statistics, the realities we don't know. These are the reported rapes, but you're going to find that most child sexual abuse is unreported.
I was fascinated to read about how all of this affected you. You write at times you would be in tears and paralyzed by the information that you had collected. What was it that struck you the most in the gut?
The resilience of these children who have undergone the most horrific forms of abuse, all types of abuse, child pornography being for me one of the... It's just, and to on a daily basis have to deal, that every day they wake up, they're reminded through either a scar on them or a tattoo that dad has put on their, you know, saying daddy loves you, or things like that.
The rapist dad?
Yes.
And another thing that is staggering about what you've discovered is that it is not just younger and younger children, I mean infants who are being sexually abused, but that it is younger and younger children who are the perpetrators as well.
Absolutely. You'd find quite a high percentage of the perpetrators are children, so child on child. So it's really important that schools and parents keep an eye out on their children. Because if there is a problem and they're sent to counselling and taught appropriate sexual behaviour, there will not be a problem. It's that we're not catching these children in time.
There is a very touching picture. It's of a police officer. And tell me this story. Here he has his head in his hands and he's obviously talking to a mother, a relative, who's in distress.
So this is Stroppie Grobelaar, one of my favourite South African cops. He is in the police search and rescue unit, dog unit, and we've spent about a month at this point searching for a little girl who went missing and was last seen walking hand in hand with an unknown man. But every evening after the search, he would come back to this mother to tell her that they're still searching, not to give up hope. But in the end, we never found the girl or her body.
How intense is the law enforcement, the prevention? I mean, because some people think, you know, this is so endemic that police don't really care about it.
The police that I worked with are so dedicated to the protection of children. I mean, to the extent that they're going through divorces, they're working overtime, they're not, you know, day in and day out they deal with this, which obviously
changes their lives too.
Changes their lives. It's a difficult, you know, there are no crimes worse than crimes against children of this nature.
And to that end, you have spent time with the worst criminals, therefore, the perpetrators.
Yes.
But you have said that it's not black and white. Sometimes after endless sessions of therapy and watching them, they asked you, do you hate us now? And you responded?
No.
Why not?
You know, when I was working with the police and these children coming in, I was like, my goodness, if anyone comes in now, I will kill them myself. And actually, when you start working with them, and this is very different to other people who work with them, because they definitely do not feel, I don't feel affection for them, but I could see the different facets of each personality. And one in particular, I remember, was a perpetrator from Namibia who would have been a friend. You know, he was witty, intelligent, funny, and he abused children.
You've described how this work has actually made you physically ill.
Well, I have post-traumatic stress disorder, I suffer from depression. It's extraordinary, the impact of carrying other people's stories with you. And there's a great difficulty for me to release these stories because I feel they've been given to me and they're very sacred. So it's difficult to let them go.
Well, you're not letting them go. They're here and they will be the evidence for many people who need to know about this. Mariella Fura, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.